So, a bit of a disclaimer before we get started with this. Potentially, something might be considered a bit controversial later with topics that are going to be brought up, but it may also. Why is the face rig guy not following my lips? Anyway, distractions. Uh, Topics might be considered controversial or my viewpoints. So, let's get into this. And what is today's topic, you ask? No one at all? Easy. Shipping! And the hellscape it can be, along with the good and the bad I've experienced over the years, and how it shaped me over the years. So, how exactly did I get into shipping? Well, it started without me even knowing. I was just 4 years old, watching Cartoon Network like any other 90s child at the time. Either it was Cartoon Network for me or Disney movies around that time again. So, you know, just typical 90s kid. Good old days. Yeah, I think you may be able to tell where this is going to go. Anyway, I'm just minding my own business, watching probably Dexter's Laboratory or Courage the Cowardly Dog, something, when it comes on. And no, I am not talking about the creepy clown Pennywise from It that was scared the shit out of me. That's not it. I am talking about this. And mind you, I didn't know what anime was at all at the time, and didn't for quite some time still, actually. I just saw this cartoon, a pretty cartoon at that, let me tell you, and I just watched it. And that's when my conscious mind became enamored with these two. Such simpler times. So, outside the Disney scape I've been accustomed to with seeing couples, I now discovered an entirely different type of couple. We know our Disney princes and their princesses, and all the princesses, of course, always had to be damsels, and who always had to get saved by their princes. Fairy tale, love ever after, all that good stuff. Well, Serena wasn't that type. Well, not entirely. Darian saved her plenty of times, sure, but Serena was always the one to either save the day or the world in the end of the series or season. And yes, I am going to use their dub names because that's what I grew up with, so sue me. One of the few anime I still watch dubbed, and it has to be the old Deke dub. And mind you, they also didn't get along like your traditional Disney couple that I was used to. Serena and Darian got on each other's nerves and bickered, especially early on before they became a couple. They were like an old married couple already. Then you find out they were reincarnated from hundreds of years ago and that they were in love in a past life, and oh, well then. That sounds familiar. Can't imagine how Serena and Darian influenced my shipping habits going forward. Right? But like the Disney characters, they were the endgame. There were really no options for either of them. At least for the English dub, because yes, I know Sailor Moon Stars exist. I have watched it. It's honestly not my favorite. And I know how this brings Seiya into the picture to create the non-canon ship of Usagi and Seiya. But again, there's no option in this series with Serena and Darian. They are simply the endgame. The only way for Usagi and Seiya to exist is through fanfiction and fan art, and we are going to open a floodgate with that, so we are going to get to that one later. So I don't actually consider Serena and Darian my first ship technically, since again, or the third time. It's like the other Disney couples, they were the end game from the very start, and there were no choices. So it wasn't like an open-ended option where they could have potentially went with other people. My official first couple was these two fucking idiots. Mai Valentine and Joey Wheeler, or otherwise known as polar shipping. Unlike Disney movies and the Sailor Moon series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't really have any endgame couples in it. Sure, you have a lot of implied romantic tensions between characters like Taya and Yugi, Joey and Mai, Serenity with, well, it's one-sided with Duke and Tristan lusting after Joey's little sister Serenity, which is creepy in its own way, and I don't like it. But yeah, there were no endgame couples. It was just implied relationships that could flourish throughout the series, but nothing was ever cemented in concrete, really. So I remember being 7 years old and first watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And Kids WB, and yeah, I'm dating myself with this, with the Kids WB reference here, and watching the 4Kids dub and everything they did with it. But anyway, distractions. And yes, at the same time, I was also watching Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z as a little kid, but Pokemon didn't have any romantic ships since everyone was a kid. And as a 7-year-old, I wasn't online in forums looking at these things yet, or any of it. So I didn't know what shipping was in Pokemon. And Dragon Ball Z was like Disney movies and Sailor Moon in the sense that they already had their couples established either through Dragon Ball itself with Chi-Chi and Goku, or with Bulma and Vegeta already getting together, or Krillin and 18 getting together throughout the course of the series. There were no options for them. So I'm not including them in this either. At least, not yet with Pokemon. That might be a later topic, because I ended up shipping some stuff with Pokemon later as a older teenager and into adulthood, since I didn't know what it was as a kid. Anyways, for whatever reason, I gravitated to the characters of these two. Mai was a cool character to see as a kid, and Joey was an absolute goofball who was just absolutely lovable. And they both had cool decks. I mean, come on. Cyber Harpies, Red Eyes Black Dragon. I still rock a good Harpy deck on Master Duel, besides my burn deck with Marshmallow on and pissing people off. But, you know, the distractions. Again, I was 7 at this time, and I thought Yugi and the gang were like 18 years old or something, and Mai was 20. Not that Mai was fucking 24 compared to Joey being 16. But I digress, because that doesn't stop me from shipping these two to this day. Yet another bickering pair, like Serena and Darian, who gradually became closer as the series goes on. Yeah, no way Serena and Darian didn't influence this pair. I mean, at least they're not reincarnated. Instead, one joins an evil team later on and turns on all of her friends. Wait a minute. Anyway, and let me tell you, the whole Mai joining Darts' Orichalcos gang, that just murdered any fucking character building from the first seasons with her. And to me, it made no sense for her to even do this. She wants to blame everything on Joey, and by lesser extent, the rest of the gang for not being there for her after the whole Merrick thing, when literally Joey was ride or die for her in Battle City and nearly got killed dueling Merrick, for Christ's sakes. And you're going to tell me Serenity never told Mai about what Joey did for her? Yeah, no, that never happened. Excuse the outburst there. So, to me, that was just poor writing, and they just did it for some dramatic flair. Though it did give us a few good polar shipping moments, I will say. But again, it destroyed any character development that Mai had previously. So in this case, the series giveth and the series taketh. And yes, I am aware that the context of the dialogue is more implied towards polar shipping in the dub than in the original Japanese version, but there is the version that is the version I grew up with, and there are still implications even in the Japanese anime. It's just not as strong. The only version that has no implications is the actual manga. I mean, even the voice actors are behind this. Megan Hollingshead is a polar shipper herself, and I get the original creator initially said that they're just good friends, but then he releases this official image 5 years ago. I mean, that looks pretty implicating to me, so I think the man may have changed his mind a little bit. Again, I digress. So that was my first official ship as a kid without knowing what shipping actually was. And it's one of the ships I still like and support despite the age gap. Because yes, there can be age gaps in relationships, and there's nothing saying they had to be together when Joey was 16 or 17. And even if they, let's say, did get together, that doesn't mean they had to have sex, because not everything revolves around sex. My main grievance with this ship, though, is that we never got closure with them in the series. Mai just drives off at the end of the Orichalco arc on her motorcycle, and we never see her again except for one cameo appearance. 2 if you count the Japanese version, where she has a second cameo appearance at the very end of the series. But yeah, if we're going by the English dub, we see her one more time in the crowd when Yugi wins, and yeah, that's it. We don't see her ever again. Not like that'll happen to me again, though, right? Yeah, come on, it can't happen again. So, let's go on to my next ship that then was created in my mind, or in my heart, which someone actually did die off when I was a kid, but then came back into my life, and now, yeah, pretty much controls my life now. And that comes from the series Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. The infamous shipping of Shiera Hall and John Stewart, aka Hawkgirl and Green Lantern, or as us old people call it, HGGL, or the new way of terming it, Green Hawk. So, my love of DC in general started when I was like 3 or 4 years old, somewhere around there. One of my first like conscious memories when I first gained like consciousness as a kid is of me watching Batman on Cartoon Network. And I mean, this was Batman the Animated Series. This was the old time 90s Batman. And the episode in particular was Cat Scratch Fever. And yeah, I am not against the Batman and Catwoman ship, but I mostly ship the DCAU Batman with Wonder Woman. But that's a whole different subject, because there's a difference between comic book Batman and animated DCAU Batman for me when it comes to shipping. Anyways, here we are again with a stubborn pair who cannot get along. This is starting to sound familiar already. And I was watching Justice League at the same time as Yu-Gi-Oh! As they both began to air when I was just 7, and Justice League aired on both Kids WB at the time and Cartoon Network. So I got exposure to both. Honestly, when I first watched the series, I mostly just liked Batman and The Flash. I somewhat liked Wonder Woman and Hawkgirl's characters, but I was mostly there for Batman. Bruce had my heart back then. Honestly, I was never the biggest Superman fan, so he was just sort of there for me. And I found Jean boring, honestly. I mean, they didn't do too much with his character. Even to this day, he's not the most interesting out of the seven. And I was actually not a fan at all of John's character when the series first aired. I thought he was just bland as a kid and I couldn't connect with it. But it also did not help that I didn't consistently see the episodes. So I only got to see like the big primetime multi-part episodes. Your Secret Origins, Savage Time, Better World, Wild Cards, and Starcross, which were heavily commercialized on Cartoon Network. They're like, watch it now or else you're going to miss something big. So you knew when they were going to air. It wasn't like the one-off episodes where they didn't really care about them. I just saw the big time episodes. So yeah, I saw most of the big John and Shire moments in JL, but I didn't see all of them, like the smaller, finite moments. I just saw the big picture ones. But I still just accepted them as a couple and moved on to Justice League Unlimited, where I was now a bit older at 10 years old and could understand things better than when I was 7 or 8 years old. So I understood more the romantic plot line they had between the two, but because I hadn't seen every single Justice League episode at that point, I wasn't as emotionally invested with them as I am now. It just wasn't there for me at the time. But we are going to leave this here for the moment. We're going to get back to it because there's a whole nother thing that gets me back into Justice League. So that'll be a whole nother tangent. So my next big series that pretty much consumed most of my teenage years came up during that time, and that was Naruto. The series where I had so many ships, both canon and non-canon, let me tell you. In the first series where I witnessed and personally experienced the ugly side of fandom when it comes to shipping. Because now as a teenager, I was going online. I was seeing things. And some things were not very beautiful to see. They were ugly. So when Naruto first came out, I still didn't know what anime was actually. I was still 9 years old and I was in the middle of watching Justice League Unlimited, but then all of a sudden this cool ninja cartoon was on Toonami at the same time. Honestly, I was more interested in that than Justice League Unlimited at the time. And I continued to watch Naruto on Toonami every week. And this was now a series where I saw it from episode 1, and I could emotionally invest myself with these characters. And I ended up watching every single episode until they took it off air from Cartoon Network. And I think it was when I was about 12, maybe I was 11, I think I was 12 though, when I finally discovered that the cartoons I was watching was actually called anime, and it was made in Japan. And that opened an entire other floodgate for me. Regardless, I now had to find a way to find the remaining episodes that did not air yet on Cartoon Network. And that brought me to the subbed version of the anime, and I discovered that Japan was already airing Naruto Shippuden at the time. So did I now not only have to catch up on the Naruto episodes, but now I also had to catch up on what was happening in Naruto Shippuden, which had not yet aired in the US. And I had now discovered manga on top of it when I found out about Naruto Shippuden, and I had to catch up on the manga as well, since, as we all know, the manga always runs way ahead of the anime. So Naruto pretty much took over my remaining middle school years and all of high school. But right now we are talking about shipping, so let's just talk about the ships I got into. I'm probably going to do a whole nother video about the fandoms I'm currently in, was in, and the floodgates that happened that got me into those fandoms. So anyways, the first ship was Naruto and Hinata, which, yes, it did end up becoming canon in the end. But this was the first series where I ended up shipping characters together who didn't really interact. And it was more because I now discovered something else at the end of middle school, and that was fan fiction. So ships like Ino and Kiba were born. I even shipped Ten Ten and Neji together, and we know what happens to poor Neji. Rest in peace, Neji. But my second favorite ship in the whole series was Kakashi and Anko, who did not interact at all, but fanfiction made it possible. And yes, I understand there are filler episodes in the anime where some of these characters end up interacting, but as we know, the filler episodes are not canon to any of the storylines, so take it as you will with a grain of salt, whether you want to consider the filler arcs and episodes as canon or not. But my ultimate ship for this series was the canon ship, which was Kurenai and Azuma, who happen to be two of my favorite characters as well. And yeah, we also know how that one ended. I really don't have a good track record, do I? Anyways, these two just completely enthralled me. I loved everything about them. It's not like they were main characters. They were very much side characters in Naruto, with Azuma getting a little bit more attention in Shippuden and Kurenai unfortunately fading to the background completely, even by the time Boruto airs. She appears a couple times, which in itself that's amazing that they even decided to even show her face, but you know, it is what it is. And it's not like Kishimoto's known to be really weak at writing female characters and not knowing what to do with them, right? Anyways, that ship completely controlled my life in high school, and it was based off of that ship that I wrote my first fanfiction, which is no longer existing anywhere online. You will never find it. I even deleted any hard copies I had saved in Word docs. It was a very poorly written one-shot series revolving around Azukuri, obviously Azuma Kurenai, with hints of Kakashi and Anko, sprinkled in with even an OC kid, because why not? That's what was popular back then and what you did. And once I entered the Naruto fanfiction writing circle is where I found the not so nice side of fandoms finally. And quite unfortunately. I get people ship Naruto with Sasuke, but the second it comes out that you don't, my god. Run for those fucking hills, my friends. I remember I joined the anime club in high school, and I think I was the only one or one of two who did not engage in yaoi shipping. And it was not a good time for me at that club. Suffice to say, I only went once. And granted, this was 2011 when this happened, but I was labeled a homophobe because I did not ship Naruto with Sasuke. Look, you can live whatever lifestyle you want, I don't care. It's your business, not mine. But just because I don't ship two fictional male anime characters together doesn't mean I'm a homophobe. Let's just get that one straight. And this is probably where we're going to curtail more into the more controversial side that I warned about earlier. But, I mean, it was just ridiculous. Because it wasn't even in the anime club. It was also online where these accusations were coming out. Like, just because you didn't support this ship, you were now a homophobe and you hated gay people? Like, come on. That's like, you're drawing fucking straws at this point. Anyway, I am not entirely comfortable writing for a same-sex couple because I don't know what that is like. And I don't want to try to represent that when I have no idea what it is like. To me, that's like, I don't know. To me, it's almost disrespectful if you're trying to write for something that you have no knowledge of yourself. And maybe that's a hot take for some people, but to me, I don't want to write for things that I am not comfortable writing for because I don't have knowledge of it. It's like currently where I still write fan fiction for Shiera and John, and I had someone ask me, and it wasn't even once. This was multiple times, and it was also demanded through DMs that why don't I make a chapter about their kids struggling with their identity of being half white and half black and dealing with racism? Okay, number one, Shiera's an alien. John's a human. I mean, if you want to consider Shire white, okay, fine. But I mean, they're half alien, half human. Uh, it's like grasping at straws like before. I'm not comfortable writing about racism because, well, yes, I have experienced it myself, which is a whole different story I want to do because it sort of is funny in a messed up kind of way because I have a very fucked up sense of humor. It's not to that extent of what people deal with on an actual regular basis. And I, again, don't want to try to represent something in my writing where I never personally experienced it to that level myself. Getting back to the subject and not getting curtailed again, because I go off on tangents if you don't notice already. My god, because I exclusively shipped Azuma and Kurenai, Naruto with Hinata, and Sasuke with Sakura, I was labeled a homophobe really hard online, and there was this, I don't know if it's still popular, but back then it was a Naruto fanfiction site. I don't remember, it was like narutofic.org or something. I used to get fucking so many reviews calling me homophobe, asshole, fucktard, like you name it, I was called it because I shipped heterosexual couples. And honestly, I almost quit fan fiction writing entirely because of this, because I didn't like dealing with the aggravation behind the comments. It was just ridiculous. And yes, I get some of these comments were probably trolls, but there were some who were really serious about their claims. And there were very, very nasty comments that I can't even repeat because I swear TikTok will probably, and even YouTube will probably fucking take down the video if I do that. But at the same time that Naruto was going on, I was also heavily into Harry Potter. I mean, yeah, I read the books as a kid in elementary school, but now that I was a teenager and I was a lot older, I had more of the attention span to actually read the books and understand the books and watch the movies and be a little disappointed by the movies versus what happened in the books. But anyway, as we all know, Harry Potter also does have its canon ships, which I do support. There are also non-canon ships that I support. The main one being Hermione, which at first I didn't support, and then I read some really good fan fiction about it. So yeah, that's like my OTP in that one. And don't get me wrong, I still love Ron with Hermione together, and I feel, but I guess I feel if Draco had gotten with her, it would have proved he fought against his family's biases towards Muggleborns, and I feel that would have like proved his character evolved so much from the first book or movie, whichever one you want to consider. If you never read the book, you never read the books, but watch the movies, and vice versa. But I get why J.K. Rowling didn't go that route, since Ron and Hermione were best friends since first year, yada yada. But I really feel there could have been something with that character development with Draco had she gone that route with Hermione and Draco. But I don't want to get a debate into what J.K. Rowling decided to do with her storylines. Anyways, I left the Naruto writing scene by the time I graduated high school. I want to say it was like maybe in the summer before my senior year when I just said, fuck this. I deleted everything. And yeah, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't stay in that circle of fandom anymore, and I very rarely ever interact with the Naruto fandom. I just, anymore to this day, I just watched the anime and read the manga, and that was it, and I stayed in my own little private bubble at home, like reading all this stuff and watching stuff. Even with Boruto, I will not get involved with the fandom again because I can only imagine how much worse it's gotten over the years. And it's a shame because I probably would have made like good friends online had I stayed in the fandom, but just the level of toxicity that came out of that fandom, I just don't think I can ever go back into it, honestly. It's just way too big. There's just too much negativity, too much toxicity, and I don't want to deal with that anymore. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. So, with my waning interest in the Naruto fandom, something came back into the picture. And that's where we're now going to come back to John and Shiera. You see, I started working in 2011 and I now had adult money. I know that's fucking scary. You're giving a 17-year-old adult money that I could now spend. And what did I spend it on, you ask? Simple. For whatever reason, I bought the DVD sets of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. I got it for about like $4 or $5 each, so for about $20, I had every single Justice League and Justice League Unlimited episode. And it's not like I was actively seeking to get back into the series or anything. I just thought, oh, the hell with it. It's cheap. I remembered the series as a kid, so I thought, why the hell not buy it and give it a little rewatch for $20? And let me tell you, best decision of my life. Now that I was pretty much almost an adult, I understood everything that was happening in the series. Every undertone, everything in there. And let me tell you, this series was not made for kids. And the whole Shiera and John plotline with their romance and everything took a whole different turn for me now that I was older. Starcross actually hurt me emotionally. Not just being disappointed as I was as a kid that Hawkgirl left in a sad way. I was now emotionally attached to these two characters. I actually liked John's character this time watching through because I understood the plot lines. I didn't see him as this bland character anymore. I could actually see him for what he was. It was like a light bulb went off in my little brain. And I liked, as I said before, I liked Shiera during my first watch through, but when I watched through the entire series again in Justice League Unlimited again, she easily became my favorite character. She even batted Batman out of my favorite character spot for the DCAU. Anyways, the appeal for the couple was instant when I rewatched the series because, again, they were a stubborn pair who could not get along but eventually fell for each other. And then we eventually find out they're reincarnated lovers from years ago if you go by Bruce Timm's views of ancient history and not Dwayne McDuffie's because they do differ. I wish this video was still on YouTube because Dwayne McDuffie said that he doesn't believe that ancient history happened the way it was animated, that the Absorbicron was damaged. In the scenes we saw was just Carter. That was just his desire to have Shiera mixed in with Shiera's desires and John's desires. It was like a three-way triangle thing going on with all these desires and shit. Bruce Timm, on the other hand, says, oh no, they're reincarnated. The scenes we saw are 100%. So whichever way you want to go with that, that's up to you. I'm sort of on the fence. I sort of want to go the Bruce Timm way, but I also like Dwayne McDuffie's view. I mean, it could be both, where what we saw being the desires just overlapped with what actually happened in history, and it just distorted the history. Okay, now I made another headcanon. Okay, so there's going to be another video on that, on all my little crazy headcanons with the DCAU, because that's going to be its own little floodgate that's going to open. So anyway, yes, they're reincarnated, and oh, yeah, that's sort of sounding like Serena and Darian again. I think I know what influenced me as a shipper now. And it's a lot due to the writing and just how amazing and good the writing was and the chemistry with the voice actors playing off of each other. You had Maria Canals and Phil LaMarr, and it was just how they put the energy and emotion into these characters and played off of each other. That's what pretty much sold this couple to me in itself. And then you have the whole storyline about Shiera betraying the Justice League, turning on all of her friends, and oh, this sounds like Maya and Joey with the Orichalcos thing. Oh, I think I'm starting to see a trend around here. And the characters were really well written, and despite what some people may say, to me, I don't think they needed to stay 100% true to the comics to make the characters likable. Because again, the DCAU is not the comic in its pure form. This is an adaptation of the comics. Hell, we have comics that are adaptations of comics. And people aren't getting pissed that those aren't 100% true to the comics and all that good stuff. Anyway, they gave them personalities in cartoon form, and it's hard enough to do that on paper with a comic. And it's also hard to do it in a cartoon where you only have the voice acting behind it and you can't visually portray the emotions on your face. So again, it goes back to the voice acting itself and just how much emotion they portrayed and put out there to bring these characters to life. And what made it so much better was this fandom I was now getting into was not toxic. At least when I first got into it. Nowadays, I can't say the same, unfortunately. DCAU is fine. It's, well, for the most part, it's the Greenhawk ship that has its problems nowadays. So naturally, I got back into fanfiction and I said to hell with it, and I tried to write my first actual story with very little writing experience outside of that Azukuri one-shot series for Naruto and the single Greenhawk one-shot I wrote not long before writing that story. And I was also fresh out of high school. And yeah, my first story did not age well. It was written 13 years ago. I know that. That's why I ended up rewriting it 4 years ago. But I also went into a series where it's pretty much a drought. It's not like Naruto where you're just getting bombarded left and right with content. There's not much going on. So if someone posts something, people are going to look at it. Or at least back then they did. DCAU as a whole is more or less dead, unfortunately, with nothing going on. And even if you post something, it probably won't get read nowadays or not as read as a few years ago. Though I have my whole theories on why fanfiction has been waning in views. That's going to be a whole nother conversation about AI and all the spam bots that are going around and killing the fanfiction and even fan art scene. That's going to be a whole nother video because I can go on a tangent about that one. But unlike Naruto, I actually made friends in this fandom. People where you could have a conversation, whether you agreed on a headcanon or not, and not be called every fucking swear imaginable or having like someone claim you are something you are not because you don't agree with their point of view, which was so refreshing after coming out of the Naruto fandom. We now go into the current state of Greenhawk and DCAU, and now we have the anti-DCAU people coming out of the woodworks. And I get it. There are people that aren't going to like this series because of how much they adapt it from the comics and changed. I get it. There's people that aren't going to like that. But what I don't like is when you go and attack people for what they do like. Because you don't see DCAU fans going out and attacking people for being comic stans, as they call us fans of the DCAU stands. And don't get me wrong, I like the comics. I mean, there's content I can't get outside of the comics, like the Red Lanterns. Sure, they appeared in the Green Lantern animated series, but they were toned down so much because it was a show catered towards kids. But I still liked how they adapted them and they made it work for a kid's show. So I'm not going to go give them flack for making the Red Lanterns toned down in the Green Lantern animated series. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. So with the anti-DCAU comes the big voice that is the anti-Greenhawk shippers nowadays. I get there are people who are not going to like that ship as well because people like to have Hawk Girl or Hawk Woman, depending if you're looking at Kendra or Shiera with Carter, to each their own. To me, I am not a fan of Carter Hall, whether we're looking at the DC Comics or the DCAU. I feel he really held back both Kendra and Shiera's character whenever he interacted with them. That's its own other issue. I have never been a Hawkman fan in its entirety. And again, I get that people are not going to like the DCAU from the deviations they made from the comics and the changes made. But my problem is with the anti-shippers. It's getting reminiscent of the old Naruto fandom I left and its toxicity and the reasons why I left. Because apparently nowadays, if you ship John and Shiera together, you're somehow a racist. I'm sorry, what? That's right. You're somehow a racist for shipping two fictional characters together instead of Shiera with, say, Katar Hall back on Thanagar or Carter Hall, aka Hawkman on Earth. This is also from people who hate the DCAU version of Shiera. And yeah, I get it. Some people aren't going to like her character because they don't like how they didn't use Kendra Saunders, even though at the time, it was a whole reason because of what was going on in the comic books at the time. And I really don't want to get into it and give it the time of day because I'm going to get a headache thinking about all these arguments and how somehow you're racist for shipping these two characters together. I just can't. These people that are making these claims need to read their comics back in the mid and late 90s into the early 2000s. And that will, well, not even the early 2000s. It was up to like 1998, 1999-ish that Bruce Timm made this decision. He was going to use Shiera and not Kendra for a reason. But to each their own. My only hope right now is that somehow they just leave this tiny little fandom alone because we really don't have much going for us right now. So maybe go outside and touch some grass. I don't know. Have some face-to-face human contact. I think that's what you guys really need at this point. Instead of like ragging on us 10 little Greenhawk shippers that still exist and actually consume DCAU material. I just don't know what to tell these angry people. Like, if your life is that miserable that you have to attack other people, like, get a puppy. Go kiss a kitten. Hug a honey badger. I don't know. Just get an animal. A goldfish, maybe. Anyways, almost every ship that I even support nowadays comes down to fan fiction and fan art because just like Mai and Joey, John and Shiera never get their happy ending on screen. We're just told that, yeah, they eventually get together and they have their son Rex, aka Warhawk eventually, but we don't get to see it, which is disappointing because it's one of those few actual canon ships in the series outside of like Superman and Lois or Black Canary and Green Arrow or Huntress and Question. We don't get to see the fruition of that canon ship. But don't get me wrong, because I also ship Batman and Wonder Woman, like I said earlier, because of the whole thing. I think the animated Batman from the DCAU and comic book Batman are completely separate for shipping, because when it comes to the comic books, I am a 100% stand for Batman with Catwoman. Selena and Bruce absolutely belong together. Yeah, in plus, even though I am a Greenhawk shipper, I also have a non-canon ship in the DCAU that I do support on the side a little bit. Because if John and Shayera were not a thing from the very start and they weren't the end game of the series, and I can pretend in an AU world they don't get back together or were never together to begin with, I would readily ship DCAU Batman with Shayera. And honestly, that is my B team ship for both of those characters. Because yes, I am a filthy and proud Greenhawk and Wonder Bat shipper, but I am also a filthy Bathawk shipper as well. And before you ask, I don't care what version, if this is animated or comic book series, Wonder Woman does not belong with Superman. Sorry about that. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to go too much off into a tangent because I could keep going on and on about the ships. Even like, as I said earlier with Pokemon, I didn't ship it as a kid, but now, well, I didn't have ships in it when I was a kid, but now being older, yeah, I ship Ash and Misty together. I have other couple ships that I do ship where characters never interacted in the series at all. But I'm just going to end it there. I just wanted to cover my experiences as someone that went through the whole shipping thing as a kid into teenage years and then into adulthood. And some of the good and bad I have seen over those years. And honestly, I only scraped the surface. I could have went in deeper, but I don't want my video getting flagged for the comments that I would be saying that were said to me because they were that graphic. Especially when they find out you're a female in some of these fandoms, it starts to get ugly. And trust me, I could just keep going on, but it's not even in animated series because there's also live series like Law and Order SVU, which I don't actively watch anymore, but you get the idea because, you know, Olivia and Elliot deserve to be together and all that good stuff. But yeah. We're just gonna leave it at that. I'm thinking probably the next video I'm gonna do is gonna be about AI and the state it has left fanfiction in as a whole, and how the AI spam bots have been killing fanfiction and to a degree fan art. So I'll be seeing, or well, I guess not seeing, but talking to you guys later. So see ya. Oh, that didn't wink. Wait. There we go.